Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Mechabellum. A new patch has just dropped and I wanted to give you guys my opinions on all of the changes that are coming to the game. Now, they mention again at the start the big patch coming on February 20th, which will contain new content and also the new unit, the Hound, but they want to improve the state of the game before then, and so that is why these balance adjustments are taking place in update 1.2.0.5. Let's get right to it. It starts with the Tarantula. Its range has been increased from 75 to 80. That's a pretty rare thing to see. Range doesn't usually get increased on units all that often. The cost of range enhancement also has been decreased from 350 to 300. So they're reverting the nerf that they made to it a couple patches ago. And then in return, the attack has been decreased by 5%. Now the dev note here says, due to the introduction of Saber, the pick rate of Tarantula has decreased a lot, and with a new range increase, Tarantula will be more effective against light units. These two sentences kind of go past one another. Sabertooth obviously will remain very good, and I think Tarantula still will have trouble against that pack in the early game. However, it is true that Tarantula, one of its reasons why it's easily countered is because of its low range. So tackling that, I think, is tackling the right thing in order to make this more playable and maybe even allow it to compete with something like Arclight in the long run. That being said, I don't think this will be meta all of a sudden. I think it will maybe be more playable. We have certainly felt the increase in the range enhancement cost, so bringing that back down should allow this to be more playable. And get to a stage where you basically have like these two techs, right? Range and high explosive, that allows this unit to clear like an absolute beast. But until then, I think it will still struggle with certain matchups, and at high MMRs, it hasn't been performing well even before the Sabertooth was increased, or introduced rather, as a starting unit, and things like Hacker, for instance, really do counter it very effectively. I'm excited to see it though, because it is quite a fun unit to me. And I would like it to become another option aside from something like Arclight or other chaff clear units we have. Sabertooth is the next in line, with splash range being decreased from 6 to 5. Now, what they say here is quite important. After the splash range decreases, Sabertooth will be weaker against small units, and it will not be able to damage two closely positioned steel balls with one shot. This has been quite a pain to deal with. It's happened to me, and I have done it to opponents as well. And yeah, it feels really bad when you're on the receiving end of a Sabertooth doing this to your units. It also happens sometimes with crawlers stacked on top of arcs and sledges stacked on top of one another. So hopefully this will prevent that. That being said, Sabertooth is strong for many other reasons. It's very tanky early on, and it has a lot of good matchups because of that. So it tends to win a lot in the early game, which means it gets a lot of experience, and then it levels early on, which makes it even tankier, and that kind of just snowballs out of control. So I don't think this change will really make Sabertooth suddenly a bad unit. I think it will still probably be the best pack in the game, and you probably still are going to want to pick all of the Saber packs if you want to have the best start possible. Now, Arclight gets a nerf as well, with the experience requirements to rank up being increased by 15%. This is trying to, I guess, tackle, well, the damage that they deal for the most part, because Arclight, with its fast attack speed, is currently able to DPS quite effectively once it gets levels and it gets something like Elite, and those are two things that have been getting nerfed, right? The XP requirement to rank up, Elite Marksman getting nerfed. It doesn't quite tackle the thing that makes Arclight so strong, in my opinion, though, which is the fact that it has really fast attack speed in its current iteration, and that makes it really good at clearing chaff early on, and it also allows it to scale quite well with the techs that it has. Elite is indeed one of them, but EMP more so almost in certain scenarios. So making EMP more expensive or even removing it, I think, would be good. And I don't know if they want to tweak the attack speed, because obviously the problem then is that Chaff might get out of control, because I don't think we have the best options for Chaff gear right now. So I don't mind Arclight being a good unit for that. You probably just kind of want to tone the unit down in being good into anything that isn't Chaff, which right now probably is getting a little bit out of hand. It's a good first step though. Fire Badger gets a small attack increase from 4%. I think this is good. Fire Badgers on their own seem to struggle quite a lot against things like crawlers, especially at low levels. So increasing the attack there should be good. It's always something you have to be a bit careful about, because Fire Badgers like Vulcan, like Mustang, attack very quickly. And so increasing their damage numbers at some point might mean that they also become good against stuff that they're not supposed to kill. So I like that they're going slowly about this, but it would be nice to just get more chaff gear options available. Obviously, Fire Badger is not something that you can unlock, so we'll have to see. It has been showing up here and there, and we'll just have to look at how this develops. Scorpion, cost of field maintenance decreased from 300 to 250. I don't think this is going to do all that much. I think there are plenty of units that can deal with something that's very big and tanky. And the problem with Scorpion is that if you give it field maintenance, you probably want it to tank, but then you can't give it something like range. And Scorpion being an expensive unit means that it often performs a pretty important role in your comp. So if it gets insta-locked by, you know, an Overlord or a Melter or whatever it may be, right? A high-level Phoenix, any DPS unit, it probably still will just go down. So that's why I generally have been moving away from the tanky techs on that unit. But we'll have to see if some people make this work. Overlord gets a lot of changes as well. Another range increase here. They really have been more willing to do this. Remember, the Wraith got a range buff as well not too long ago, which really is something that hasn't been happening all that much across the past 1.5 years for any type of unit. Attack has been decreased by 4%, and the HP has been increased by 3%. The developer knows here is after its cost increase, Overlord's pick rate and win rate both decreased. This change aims to improve Overlord's survivability. So what this change does, I'm not completely sure. It is the same range as a Melter now. So now you have to wonder, does this make Overlord playable in Standard? Maybe. I'm not sure. I think Overlord being as big as it is still is very easily counterable by things like AA Marksman or even Phoenixes. And it's so expensive that it's very hard to get to all of the techs that you need, right? Range, Overload, Wasp Spawn, that type of build is just so slow to come online now, and you struggle to get the numbers on the Overlords to be able to justify all those techs. And then if you're playing it more on the line, I'm not sure if you really need the range increase there, but maybe people can play this aggressively with something like Chin Gun and Overload, and since you have a little bit more range, perhaps having only Overload if you're near the line might make that a more playable build. But yeah, I don't really know. I think Overlord is in a bit of a weird spot where it still has its old techs, but it's way more expensive than it used to be, and people just prefer building other units. Like the Raiden, for instance, which is mentioned in the next line. So the HP on the Raiden has been increased by 5%. There's no dev note here. I'm not really sure what this is trying to do, but Raiden hasn't been in the best spot as of late. I think it's doing fine. It just doesn't show up as often anymore, but maybe that's a good thing. It has a very unique shooting mechanic, which can get a bit out of control with something like the chain. So maybe it's fine for it to just have a more niche role. Obviously, it still does perform quite well into things like Fire Badgers and Phantoms and any like mid-sized units like Ball and Sledge. But yeah, we'll just have to see if this meaningfully does anything for the position of Raiden in the meta. Death Knell gets a change. This is something that I'm not too familiar with. I don't play the game modes where the Death Knell is available, but it gets an HP increase of 15%. The barrier gets a massive buff of 120,000 per level, I imagine. Efficient maintenance is removed. An electromagnetic bomb is added, which I imagine will be the EMP missiles that Melter normally has, but I presume it's going to be way more than the Melter fires. I don't know what this does. I don't play these game modes, but it's good that they're also willing to change some of these units for the other game modes. And here comes maybe some of the most interesting things. Specialist and unit pack HP. This is also something that wasn't changed a lot in the past, but it is very effective, I think, or it is a relatively effective balancing mechanic to just tackle the hit points that you have whenever you pick a certain starting pack. So Typhoon spec now obtains free Typhoon on round 4. Big change. Player HP bonus increased from -300 to 0. Farseer Specialist obtains free Farseer on round 4. Player HP bonus increased from -500 to 200. So they're giving more hit points, but they're also making sure that you no longer get this free mercenary unit on round 3, which is something that a lot of people have been asking for, and kind of put it in line with something like the Rhino Specialist. I still believe that these specialists will be really good though. Rhino spec is still strong, and I think these are probably even better since Farseer and Typhoon again are those mercenary units, and if they don't show up earlier, you do block them for your opponent. So a nice change. 2 things at once, and I'm looking forward to see what this does, because I think both of these have been the best specialist for quite some time now. Rhino spec, player hit point bonus decreased from 200 to 0. Good change, I think. This has been a pack that has also been up there with the other 2 specialists that we just mentioned. So bringing its hit points down a bit, I think will be a good change. Fortified Specs player bonus has been increased from 100 to 200. So apparently this is a spec that hasn't been doing all too well, or perhaps has been struggling as the others have been added. So they're deciding to give it a little bit more. Missile spec player HP bonus increased from -300 to 0. Good change. Missile spec has not been performing too well. It only does well into very specific packs like Mustang openers and Storm openers. But it had very, very few hit points, so I think it's a good thing that they're changing that. Amp spec player bonus also has been increased from 0 to 100. This all falls in line with how I was reading the specialist meta. I made a video about that not too long ago, and these changes do somewhat reflect where I decided to put these specialists. So I'm kind of happy to see that maybe I was right somewhere, and I'm also very happy to see that they're willing to finally tackle this side of the balancing, because I do think it is an effective side of balancing. There's also unit packs, of course. Tarantula Marksman gets a bonus. Tarantula Fang gets a bonus. Tarantula and Crawler also gets a bonus. So all of the Tarantula packs here being a little bit more healthy. A good change since Tarantula has been struggling a bit. Of course, they also do immediately buff or change Tarantula. But again, I don't think the change will make it suddenly become OP. So it's good that they're giving those packs a little bit more survivability, especially if you do happen to get the matchup into Saber. Mustang Crawler gets a bonus. Makes sense. It has been a pack that hasn't performed that well for quite some time. Sledgehammer Fang gets a bonus. Sledgehammer Marksman gets a bonus. Yeah, I think this also makes quite a bit of sense. These packs have been somewhat low hit points. Sledgehammer Crawler actually being one of them that isn't in here from what I can see, but maybe it's a pack that has a high win rate. Sabertooth Arclight gets a decrease. Stormcaller Crawler gets a decrease. Stormcaller Arclight gets a decrease. I'm a little bit surprised not to see the other Sabertooth packs in here, because I think all 3 Sabertooth packs are kind of the same. The Chaff starts, you want to buy Arclights, and the Arclight starts with Saber, you will buy Chaff. And all of them, I think, should perform really well, but apparently Sabertooth Arclight is the main culprit here, or maybe it has too many hit points compared to the others. Sledgehammer Arclight gets a nerf, which makes sense. This is the one pack I think that I judged wrongly. It's been a pack that did very badly or poorly in the past, but it's been doing quite well recently, and it packs a lot of hit points. There are multiple packs with Sledgehammer Arc that have 5,000 hit points or more, and, well, Arclight being as strong as it is, it really doesn't perform all that badly, and having a lot of hit points does matter. So I like what they've done here. I think overall I agree with all of these. Some of them are missing. Again, like, I would have liked to see maybe all the other Sabertooth in there as well. Mustang Marksman already has a lot of hit points, so I guess buffing that doesn't really have that much of an impact. Reinforcement card, and this is great. Sticky Oil Bomb will no longer appear as a reinforcement card. The Sticky Oil Bomb in the Research Center remains. If you are an aggro player, or even if you are a standard player, honestly, this is great. Finally, you can no longer get double oil in one game, which could be really frustrating to play against. Having 4 rounds potentially of this area that just slows all of your units, and then also can be ignited on the second round if your opponent has a fire mechanic, really was unfun to play against, frankly. So I'm very happy that they've done this. Of course, I probably would have preferred it the other way around, remove it from the research center and keep it as a reinforcement card, but I'm happy at least that the double oil bomb is gone for now. 4-player brawl, neutral boss units are now weaker. Interesting. I don't know too much about 4-player brawl. I do know the big bosses were a bit too strong, or at least there were strats of running away, but yeah. Again, I think it's just overall good that they are also paying some attention to the other game modes. And then there's some particle effects and some memory usage optimization going on. Overall, good patch. The biggest things, I think, going to be this nice surprise at the end with the Sticky Oil Bomb removed. I think that these HP changes are all fantastic. As for the changes in the units, the splash on the Saber, kind of a nice change, but would have liked to see a hit point decrease as well. And we'll see how the Tarantula performs. It is a pack that I liked to play quite a bit, and I mean, we get a double buff here in range, and also making the range enhancement cheaper. I will definitely try this out, and yeah, I think those are going to be the things to look out for. Trying out Tarantula, Sabertooth will still be strong, Arclight will still be strong. I think these changes are kind of whatever. Overlord, I don't know. I don't think it will be that impactful. And yeah, mainly just starting packs and Oil Bomb. Anyway, if you have your own thoughts about this, if you think that I missed something or you have a different opinion, please comment down below. Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with my latest content. And with that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.